I don't like these movies.
Get real.
And I saw that movie 20 goddamn times!
Just consume product.
I watch violent movies. Yeah, violent movies are the best movies.
And it's so much fun! And really?
No, this movie's too complicated.
So once again, no smoking in this theater.
This is so illogical, about being a Smurf. What's the point of living if you don't have a dick?
Hello and welcome back to another week of Idle Film Club, your Brain Rock Girlfriend's favourite film podcast. I'm Gio.
And I'm Callum.
And this week we are here to talk about Donnie Darko.
Whoop.
Or Donnie Darko, the director's cut.
The director's cut. Everyone hated. But yeah, Donnie Darko, I haven't seen it in a good few years.
It was my favourite film as a teenager. I loved it and I haven't seen it probably in at least 5 years. So I was very excited to revisit.
Wake up.
This was one of the films that 8 years ago now, I messaged you about when we first started talking.
Aww.
I messaged you on twitter.com, now known as X, and I asked you what your favourite movie was, and you said, I tell people it's Donnie Darko, but it's actually Emperor's New Groove. And I was like, ooh, because I love both those movies very much. And today we're discussing Donnie Darko, which is a very, very special movie to me, and to you, I think, as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it with every fibre of my being.
I agree
I
wholeheartedly.
think it's a perfect movie. I think the director's cut's also a perfect movie.
I agree.
I've probably seen this movie upwards of 30 times, no exaggeration.
I've definitely seen it less than you. It was the kind of movie that when I was a teenager and I needed a good cry, I'd stick that on. Not that I ever needed an excuse to cry, but yeah, back in that day, that was a self-loathing movie for me. So it's nice to come full circle. I went into it thinking, no way I'm going to cry. Did I end up crying? Yes.
This was less of an emotional one for me. I have at times on a Donnie Darko watch cried, but I was a bit more into the plot and lore. I used to get home from school and watch this all the fucking time.
Yeah,
I used to do fan art of Donnie Darko.
It's so good. And I think it's a movie that gets better the more you watch it because you pick up on different things.
The more you look into it as well. It's not one of those movies where you look into it and you go, oh, I guess. It's one of those movies where you look into it and go, oh, fuck.
I was messaging you repeatedly today being like, this movie is mental.
Just a heads up going into this, a lot of the information on my end that I'm going to give on this podcast is not my own. It's not through a sense of I watched the movie and I worked this out.
Yeah.
It's through people smarter than me and people more obsessive than me and who had access to, because obviously we didn't grow up around the time it came out when all these fan theories were floating around.
It's a movie that I think the sort of populace of knowledge about it is all very crowdsourced.
Yes.
This isn't a movie with one particular answer. You take whatever out of the movie and don't go into this review if you watch the movie and were like, what the fuck did any of that mean? Don't feel like embarrassed or
I
no one
refuse to believe anyone has watched this movie and could sit you down and explain what it's actually about without doing research.
Yeah, we did, both of us did a lot of research into this.
And I used to back in the day, because luckily the website DonnieDarko.org is still up. I don't know how.
It's quite a cult movie in the sense of, I think time travel movies tend to garner interest and intrigue based on the universe that they create and the rules around time travel. And that in itself is usually quite intriguing. But I think this movie is done to great effect.
What's up, fuck ass?
So this is also like an early internet movie alongside sort of the Blair Witch, where after you see the movie, you don't have to, read magazines and stuff. You can just go on the internet, go to DonnieDarko.com, I think it was.
There's an archived...
There's an archive which I looked at today. And it's very janky because it's all made in Flash and stuff, but where you could go and then it revealed more about the movie. Like you could access letters of like Roberta Sparrow's and things that weren't in the movie. It was almost a companion piece.
What I think is sad that we don't really have anymore. Were you an DVD Easter egg kid? I was. I remember on like one of the Scooby-Doo DVDs that I had, you had to like click on like a certain part of one of the title screens and it would take you to like a little Easter egg thing.
No, I never did anything
but
like
I think
that.
To sort of circle back, we're talking about the director's cut today. There's obviously the theatrical version of the movie and there's the director's cut that was sort of re-edited and re-released in 2004. The original came out in 2001. So this is sort of a official remastering of the movie.
So the original cut came out in 2001, October of 2001, so a month after a certain world event.
And then, as we've said, the director's cut came out in 2004. This is the one that we're going to be covering mainly because A, this is the version that we watched, and B, I think it's a more complete version of the story.
It's a more accessible version of the story.
Which I think, to me, it's not pandering. I think it actually warrants.
Because a lot of people think it is handholdy and annoying. People thought there was too much story, which is crazy
I mean,
to me.
if you're watching that movie and being like, it holds your hand too much, your media literacy must be exceptionally high.
No, I just think it was those people who between the years 2002 and 2003 were obsessed with Donnie Darko
I guess.
and then tried to gatekeep Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the vibe I get. People think it's a worse movie, and there are scenes and certain effects and stuff which I don't think are necessary.
Yeah, I mean, essentially with this movie, the director's cut came out in 2004. Richard Kelly is the director of both of them. The original budget was $4.5 million.
Thanks to Drew Barrymore.
Yes, he was then given an extra $290,000 to recut the movie into the director's cut. The original cut is 1 hour and 54 minutes because apparently the studio made him make it under 2 hours, which I think honestly is a detriment to the original. I think this story deserves a slow and emotional connection rather than just like scene.
Which is what the theatrical cut is.
Yeah.
So I watched it because we watched it together, the director's cut yesterday, and today I watched the theatrical cut again, which I've seen so many times, but it goes at breakneck speed.
Yeah, to be fair, I haven't seen the theatrical cut in a long time, but I'm pretty sure that was the DVD that I had as a teenager. The director's cut sits at 2 hours and 11 minutes, and I think, in my opinion, there's not a second of that that's wasted.
I will raise you some of the Watership Down stuff,
Yeah.
but that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, Miss Bomber. I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, I like rabbits and all. They're cute and they're horny.
So this movie was a 15, was released by Pandora Cinema and Newmarket Films. The original sits at an IMDb rating of 8, but the Rotten Tomatoes and Metascore for the director's cut, Rotten Tomatoes 87% and an 88 Metascore for the director's cut. So critics really liked this when it came out. I mean, people liked the original, but the director's cut received more praise when it came out. And then sort of retrospectively, critics have sort of turned their nose up at it, which I vehemently disagree with, but you do you.
Do you know anything about this original premiere at Sundance?
A little bit, but not really.
Because it premiered at Sundance in 2001, and I think that cut was about 2 hours 14, about that, and people hated it. It was pegged to be the darling of Sundance, and it came away and no distributor wanted it. And your film is considered a failure if you go to a film festival that you're premiering your film at and you don't come out with producers wanting to distribute it. It's considered deemed a failure and no one wanted to fucking touch it. So Newmarket was like their last hope.
It's a difficult one because unfortunately this movie, there's a lot of odd coincidences with this movie and you cannot separate it from the social context.
No.
So obviously you've already alluded to the fact that this came out shortly after 9/11. Kelly, as you've just said, basically said that it took 6 months to secure a theatrical release. They were considering putting it on some was Stars or something. It was like a shitty TV network, and I know Francis Ford Coppola was involved in sort of like petitioning for the movie.
Oh really? I didn't know that at all.
Once people saw this movie, and obviously you said about Drew Barrymore and stuff.
I know Chris Nolan, his wife, went to bat for it.
So a lot of people really believed in this movie. Like Francis Ford Coppola said something about he read the line of dialogue. You know, when Karen, the English teacher, gets fired, she says something to the effect of, these kids are the ones who know, or their parents are clueless or something. And apparently Francis Ford Coppola read that and was like, that's your movie.
That's a director's cut only scene as well, which is funny.
Crazy. So apparently it largely failed to get distributors because of the scene where Donnie has the gun and is shooting. This was obviously in the wake of Columbine.
Yeah, just a couple years.
Yeah, so they were worried it was like promoting teen suicide. And obviously the film was released 6 weeks after 9/11, and the trailer depicted an aircraft accident.
It is crazy.
And they
isn't it?
basically had to pull it. So there was like next to no advertising for the movie because that's the crux of the movie. You can't get around it.
They even because you know the title card in the movie. Have you heard about this?
I don't think so.
So you know, do you remember the font of the title card in this
Yeah.
movie? Sort of like wavy.
It's cool. It's so
It's
cool.
cool, but for the posters, they just went with Times New Roman because apparently the studio thought that font was too Arabic in the wake of
my
9/11.
God. Yeah, I think it's hard as people who don't remember 9/11, like we were too young, and also not being American.
We sort of look over the pearl clutching and
it
won't
was
someone think of the children sort of shit.
It was a time of depression, and like people were very unhappy, which understandably so. I mean, it shook the world to its core.
Yeah. Much like this movie.
This film was basically set up to fail at the box office. It flopped horribly due to obviously the political climate. The movie was released in October 2001. Its theatrical run ended in April 2002, and the film made $517,000
Fucking hell.
against a $4.5 million budget.
Not taking into account marketing. That's
Yeah.
just what Drew Barrymore's production company
Yeah.
managed to scrounge up.
The reissues recouped the budget, and they made $7.6 million worldwide.
Because it
So
was a hit in the UK.
yeah, everyone, once they were out of that 9/11 depression, pretty much rallied around this movie.
Well, it's quite funny that without the context of living in the country where Columbine and the
9/11,
World
yeah.
Trade Center attacks happened, it wasn't a smash hit in the UK, but people loved it in the
Yeah.
UK.
So the Pioneer Theatre in New York, I don't know if you sort of came across this in your research, after the film came out, started showing midnight screenings of Donnie Darko, and they continued for 28 straight months. People were
Jesus Christ.
People loved this. It was a cult classic.
Yeah, it's the very definition of a cult
classic.
classic. And I think it is one of the most iconic movies post 2000.
Oh yeah. When I was watching it, as I said, I haven't seen this movie in such a long time. Every single fucking scene
The iconography is insane.
is crazy. I'm like, oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember this. I remember this line of dialogue. I remember this shot. And like, the film opens on that like panoramic.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Sit next to the boy you think is the cutest.
Quiet.
Oh my god.
Let her choose.
By the way, I watched Deus Ex Machina, the documentary about Donnie Darko, which came out on one of the DVD releases.
Yeah.
And they said that opening shot this is the first feature debut of Richard Kelly, and he was very intimidated.
He wanted an image that was gonna like
Yeah.
last, right?
But apparently the Steadicam fucked up on his first day, and that whole scene had to be reshot. And he was like, "Oh my god, the crew are gonna hate me."
Oh.
But yeah, no, it's
To go in-
amazing.
To go a little bit into the background, because I know you didn't really look into this too much. Kelly basically recalled a news story that he had read sort of as a child, which he later called an urban legend. So I think it was just
A UL, a classic UL.
a classic UL.
What's your favourite UL?
Oh, urban legend fans in the house.
Just my favorite UL.
About a large piece of glass that fell from the wing of a plane and crashed into a boy's bedroom. And he was not in his bedroom at that time.
Yeah.
And he basically cheated death.
Yeah.
And Kelly used this to develop an initial idea of sort of a jet engine falling onto the house, and no one could determine the origin of it. Apparently he did want to do the ice thing, but sort of changed his mind. He based the film's concept of time travel and alternate universes after he read A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. So that's basically what went into making this movie.
Such an awesome, inciting incident as well.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, so good.
Do you believe in time travel?
Do you want me to go into the plot really quick?
Go for it.
We are assuming that you have seen Donnie Darko.
Please go and watch it.
It breaks my heart to think that I'm about to spoil one of the best my favourite films of all time.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched it, please don't listen to this. Go watch it.
I promise you,
You'll get something
you
out
will
of
enjoy it. It
Love it.
is absolutely amazing, and I refuse to believe that anyone that speaks negatively about this movie is telling the truth.
Yeah, I'd all die on that hill as well.
Nice.
We're gonna get called fucking Tumblr kids for this. Right, Donnie Darko. Spoilers ahead, and I'm gonna keep it very brief because we'll go deeper into it afterwards.
Spoilers ahead for this movie that is
From this movie
legitimately
from
20 years old.
You've had 24 years to watch it or something. Anyway, on October 2nd, 1988, a plane's jet engine falls from the sky into the bedroom of Donnie Darko, a troubled and mentally ill teen. Luckily, though, before the engine crashed into the house, he had been led outside onto a nearby golf course by Frank, a 6-foot-tall bunny rabbit. Frank tells him that the world will end in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds.
28 days. 6 hours. 42 minutes. 12 seconds. That is when the world will end.
Over the course of the next few days, Donnie is played by visions of Frank, who asks Donnie if he believes in time travel. Donnie then asks his teacher, Professor Monitoff, about time travel, and the professor gives him a book called The Philosophy of Time Travel, which is written by Roberta Sparrow, an ex-teacher who now lives on the outskirts of town, pacing up and down her driveway, checking her mailbox.
Grandma dear.
Yes, that's what the kids call her. And it's revealed in the director's cut as well, not in the theatrical, weirdly, that Roberta is very rich and has jewels and gems that kids try to steal.
Yes.
Remember that. Frank tells Donnie to flood the school, and Donnie obeys, later telling his therapist, Dr. Thurman, that if he doesn't do what Frank says, everyone will die. Dr. Thurman, played by...
Dolph Lundgren.
Played by Dolph Lundgren.
Played by Catherine Ross. Do you know who she is?
No, but she's very familiar. Unfortunately, when I was watching this, I was like, why do I know that person? Why do I know that person?
I did
And
this
I'm
today,
like-
and no one is in any of it.
No, I only know them from this
Yeah.
movie.
But Catherine Ross was the woman from The Graduate.
Oh,
She hadn't acted in ages, apparently.
good for her. She's good in there.
So Donnie starts dating Gretchen Ross, played by the wonderful
Jenna Malone.
Jenna Malone.
Last seen
from-
on the Idol Film Club podcast in our Ref and Flops episode.
Go check it out.
Go check it out.
She is a girl from his English class who is in witness protection due to the fact her mum was stabbed by her stepdad, and the stepdad is still at large. This story leads to one of the best quotes in the movie, which is where she says, "My stepdad has emotional problems." And he says,
I have
"I have
those
those
too.
too. What emotional problems does your dad have?"
He stabbed my mom 4 times in the chest.
Oh.
Teacher Kitty Farmer, who is the Helen Lovejoy of our operation here, blames the flooding on the fact that Donnie's English class, which is taught by Miss Pomeroy, played by Drew Barrymore, they're reading Graham Greene's The Destructors, which is a book about a group of kids who go and trash an elderly man's house. And they get there by smashing a water main, which is what Donnie does. But no one knows Donnie did it, by the way.
It's a secret.
Shut up.
It's a secret. Shut up.
Kitty starts teaching the work of motivational speaker Jim Cunningham, played wonderfully by Patrick Swayze.
He's great in there. He's the right level of slimy.
Donnie insults him to his face in probably
One of the best scenes.
You're right, actually. I am pretty. I'm pretty troubled and I'm pretty confused, but I'm afraid, really afraid, But I think you're fucking Antichrist.
But then Frank suggests on, I think at this point it's like the 28th of October, so like 3 days before the end of the world, he goes and burns down Jim's house, and when the firemen are there, it exposes Jim Cunningham's child porn ring. So he was a bad guy. He was in fact the fucking Antichrist. Kitty then, so infatuated with the cult leader like Cunningham, she wants to testify in his defence. So she asked Donnie's mum, Rose, to escort her daughter to a dance audition in LA. There's a few side plots that I haven't mentioned, but Donnie's little sister Samantha is part of like a dance troupe full of little
Sparkle
kids.
Motion.
Sparkle Motion.
Sometimes I doubt your commitment to Sparkle Motion.
So with Donnie's mum and dad gone, Donnie and his sister Elizabeth, played by
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
They throw a Halloween party to celebrate Elizabeth getting into Harvard. Gretchen shows up at this party saying her mum is missing and her house is broken into in what is probably my favourite scene of the movie. I love it so very much. Donnie then realises that the 28 days are nearly up, so he takes Gretchen and his 2 friends to see Roberta Sparrow, Grandma
On their
Death,
bikes.
on their bikes. And when they get to Sparrow's house, they find 2 school bullies attempting to rob Roberta Sparrow, and it is mentioned in the director's cut that kids do this because she has loads of jewels and gems. She's very rich, but she looks like a crazy old witch lady. And then a fight ensues because the kids think Donnie's called the police, and it leads to Gretchen being run over and killed by a car which is driven by Frank, a high schooler who is dressed up in the rabbit costume we've become familiar with.
Is he Elizabeth Maggie Gyllenhaal's boyfriend?
He is.
Right.
Well, that's the theory, because his red car is the car that drops her off at the beginning of the movie. She mentions, "Where's Frank gone?" And Donnie then, so angry that he's lost Gretchen, shoots Frank through the eye, killing him.
As he should.
Tony? Who's Tony? She's from...
Tony.
Donnie takes Gretchen's lifeless body to the ridge outside town, the ridge that we open on, and there he watches a jet engine from the plane his mother and little sister are on fall into a vortex above his house, sending it back in time to October 2nd. We cut to Donnie in his bed laughing on October 2nd as the jet engine falls into his room, killing him. The film closes on people in Donnie's life waking up as if from a bad dream, one at a time. These are all people who throughout the course of the 28 days, Donnie's affected their life in some way or another.
A butterfly effect of sorts.
Yes. Gretchen cycles by Donnie's house and learns of his death. She has never heard of Donnie Darko.
What was his name?
Donnie Darko.
She gives his grieving mother an almost familial wave, which his mother returns.
As soon as Mad World starts playing, that's when I start crying.
Oh, God,
Every goddamn
so
time.
Good. I was also thinking today, do you remember that like remix of Mad World that came out like 4 years ago? How bad was that? I remember hearing it in a McDonald's, and honestly, it was like more offensive to me than like if they played like hardcore
Sacrilege.
European pornography over the speakers. Awful. Anyway, that's Donnie Darko. What do you think of that movie?
I honestly, there are maybe 2 or 3 gripes that I could list. Other than that, to me, it is a perfect movie. And the gripes are miniature.
I'm interested. Let's hear your gripes.
So in the director's cut, you get interstitials of
of the book. Yeah, bad.
And it looks terrible.
It's shit.
It looks really crap. Some of it's done well. Some of it looks like bad CG. The director's cut bits, I can see why they would only be in an extended version. However, I think they go a long way into facilitating understanding, because this movie works on an emotional level. If you go into this movie just caring about the emotional connection that you're going to make, you can get as much out of this even if you don't fucking understand a single thing that happens. The character dynamics are good enough.
And the very interesting thing I find about Donnie Darko is that you will not realise you don't know what's going on until it cuts to credits and you go, that was a great movie.
But what the fuck?
But then if you ask someone, explain what happened. Explain why they went back in time. Explain where the jet engine came from. Things like that, you'll be like, don't know.
Not a clue.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so well paced.
I can do anything I want. So can you.
This is going to be an unpopular opinion. I find the chest stuff a little bit goofy. I understand why it's there, but I don't like it that much. It's a bit too sci-fi for me.
The effect or the actual plot device?
I don't mind the actual plot device, but I don't think the effect looks bad. I just don't really like it.
That's
very
fair enough.
much.
Yeah.
But
I've
other than
no
that,
problem with it. But I'm not gonna go to bat for.
It doesn't ruin the
water
movie or
coming
anything.
out of bodies that is meant to be showing God's path for you.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. There's a lot of themes of free will.
Do you have gripes?
Do I have any gripes with Donnie Darko? The director's cut, I think there's some classroom scenes I think are unnecessary. And there's a couple of scenes which are just long for the sake of it, which don't really add anything. I think Donnie being shitty to the teacher over Watership Down is weird and unnecessary.
I would agree with that.
He seems to shut her down far too. It's like, what are you doing? And even Gretchen's like, what are you doing? I think it's completely unnecessary and doesn't really fit the arc that Donnie's going through.
I would agree.
I understand why he's frustrated, but the whole arc is that she's the only teacher he respects.
Who gives a shit? Yeah. No, I agree.
You're wrong. These rabbits can talk. They're the product of the author's imagination, and he cares for them, so we care for them. Otherwise, we've just missed the point.
I genuinely would give this movie 10 out of 10, hands down.
Oh, yes,
I think it is absolutely amazing. Those tiny little gripes don't bother me.
No, not at all.
Because it is so inconsequential. And even after doing research today, I was like, I like this movie more than I did last
Every time
night.
I've watched it, I've enjoyed it more. I mean, I've watched it twice in the last 2 days, and I could watch it, honestly, right now. It's one of those movies I could stick on at any point.
for me, the director's cut, we sort of talked about this after we watched it, but they add a lot of the emotional, the key emotional scenes.
The scenes
for me.
with Donnie and his parents that they cut out of the theatrical cut is sort of sacrilege. I don't get it why they cut them out.
The scene with both his mum and his dad, the one with his mum especially, where she's like,
what's it like to have a wacko for a son?
Yeah, and she's like, it's wonderful or something, and that's when I was like, right, but the tears are gonna come. It's just a case of when.
How's it feel to have a wacko for a son?
It feels wonderful.
The scene with his dad where he goes, "You're not crazy.
Yeah.
I was crazy. I know crazy." And then he says, "Oh, if anyone tells you otherwise, here's something you can say to them: fuck you," or like "fuck off" or something.
Yeah.
And
it's
Donnie is very like Donnie loves his parents.
Yeah, and they love him.
They love
and
him very much. It's
the
so
relationships in this are so genuine and so heartfelt that it is like his gripes with his family, and they bicker, but you can tell they all love each
And
other and
voting
care
for
about him.
Dukakis.
I'm voting for Dukakis.
This is one of the first watches I've had because I haven't watched it in years. Obviously, I never realised how posh and rich.
Oh, they're so rich.
Then they're like Republicans.
Yeah.
They're like send their kid to private school.
Also, the fact
They're
that
paying £200 a session for Donnie's therapy.
the parents are so in love as well,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
sweet.
It's nice to see that.
The scene where they're in the Holiday Inn near
Yes.
the beginning, that scene is cut so short in the theatrical.
Yeah, I noticed that earlier.
Whereas they talk about our Donnie, and they talk about Donnie.
Eddie's talking about the kid that they went to high school with, and he sort of says, does Donnie have a guardian angel? Which is like, retrospectively a crazy thing to say, but it's true. Like,
because in the theatrical, he talks about the kid, and it's like, oh, you know, and everyone was talking about what his life was cut short, and it was a tragedy and stuff. That could have been our Donnie. Cut. How relieved they are that Donnie's alive.
Yeah.
Which doesn't come across in the theatrical very well.
No.
But they are so grateful that whatever force, they know there's a force in operation here.
This sort of speaks true actually to watching the director's cut. As a kid, I never really got the sense that he was like that close to his parents, because you just get that one scene where he calls the mum a bitch.
Yeah, because she goes, "What happened to my son?"
Yeah.
You tried taking the goddamn pills, bitch.
That's an odd one as well, because I know this wasn't in the theatrical cut. The therapist is like, "Oh, your pills are placebos. Don't bother taking them."
Weird. Yeah, I've forgotten
which
about that.
I don't understand that at all.
Again, it plays into what in my least favorite fan theory, which is Donnie has schizophrenia.
Is that a theory?
Oh yeah, it's one of the most popular theories.
That's terrible.
Which is just complete nonsense. It's not. Donnie doesn't have schizophrenia.
Yeah, but the whole point of the movie is that people are searching for a logical explanation for this, and there isn't one.
Yeah. No, I think she says...
Well, there is a logical explanation, but it's not within the realms of...
I think she wanted... I don't know why she gave him placebo pills. I don't know.
I'm going to look this up, because
I've thought that. I was like, what the fuck, why?
Because I noticed it was only in the director's cut, and I was like, I don't understand.
But surely
that.
if she thinks he has schizophrenia, then that's putting
Why would she...
client at real harm.
It is odd.
Yeah.
The last sort of thing that I want to say, watching this movie made me realise that I am an agnostic.
Good for you.
So in the movie, the therapist sort of says, you believe that the existence of God cannot be proven, but you also do not exclude the possibility that God exists.
Yeah.
Which I was like...
Did you hear about the dyslexic agnostic insomniac?
Right.
He stayed up all night wondering if there was a dog. That's an old one.
That's a good one.
You're such a fuck ass.
So I think sort of talking about the director's cut funnels into what I will term the eye, which are the interstitials that have the bad CG. This funnels nicely into the philosophy of time travel,
Which is the book
that Roberta Sparrow writes. So there's a hell of a lot to go into.
Yeah, I remember this from my teenage years of reading this
See,
and trying to make sense of it. Did you never look into this
No,
side
I
of it?
didn't.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I
So much fun.
I was too busy crying over the movie or
No,
something.
well, I was like, oh yes, they're in the Tangentons universe now.
As an adult, I'm reading it and I'm like, the literature theory part of my brain is like, mate, this is just so amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah.
So the eye in the director's cut, I don't know if...
I don't know where you're going with this, so I
Okay.
don't know.
So the eye in the director's cut, we get the interstitials of the philosophy of time travel. And often in that, you see like a clip of Donnie's eye. And these scenes basically represent the different tasks and abilities that are afforded to him by Frank.
Okay.
So we'll go into it in a little bit, but because of the time travel and because of all this stuff, the fourth dimension affords him these extra powers.
As he is the living receiver.
He is the living receiver. So the first use of it, we see Donnie's eye with waves crashing over it.
Is that his water ability?
This gives him the idea to smash the water pipe, which floods the school. The second use of it, we see computer data followed by water. Not sure where that one goes.
Computer data?
Yeah, again, it looks bad.
It looks bad. I remember seeing that and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like,
Matrix.
Matrix fucking code. And I was like, what the fuck?
So the third use of it is eye with fire over data. I wonder whether the data refers to maybe the kiddie porn ring.
Yeah, possibly.
That's the only thing I could think. The fire obviously gives Donnie the idea to burn down Cunningham's house. And then we have the eye with data and the watership down rabbit, which obviously is meant to sort of be Frank and a reference to the school.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't think I like these interstitials now you talk about it like this.
I like it. Well, do you not like the quotes from the book?
No.
Oh, you don't? Oh, I do.
They're okay.
I think
they're needed. I think it's worth watching it for that.
I think it provides excellent insight. Once you do research, it gives you just that little hint of knowledge, which I really like.
And this is why the nerds didn't like it.
Yes.
Because they were like, that's my secret special book that I found on the internet.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to see that.
The last use of it is the eye with the countdown. So that is the final countdown to...
Yes, and his special powers as well include super strength. Because he smashes the axe into the statue of the dog.
When I was watching that, I didn't pick up on that, but that's a bronze statue.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, super strength.
Yes, honestly, I can't lie. Sometimes I am not the most perceptive when it comes to movies. I get so engrossed in the overall story.
He rips the jet engine with telekinesis also. Legit, that is the plot.
Oh, is that what it was meant to be? I assumed,
maybe that's a theory.
I assumed it was just getting sucked into the vortex.
Yeah, but doesn't he conjure the vortex?
Well, this takes us very nicely to the philosophy of time travel.
Yeah.
It's called the philosophy of time travel.
Now, I'm not sure how you've structured your notes.
I just have the book, basically, in front of me, on my iPad.
I have a structure to this, so if you're happy for
you
me
lead
to...
the way. Lead me through
Okay.
The Philosophy of Time Travel by Roberta Ann Sparrow, written in October 1944.
Roberta Sparrow? Huh. She wrote a book.
Grandma Death wrote a book.
So before you get into I've got the forward here in front of me. There's already typos in this thing that I copy and pasted from the internet, so that shows you
Yeah,
how...
there was a lot of typos in the one I was looking at as well.
The intent of this short book is for it to be used as a simple and direct guide in a time of great danger. I pray that this is merely a work of fiction. Donnie quotes that as well in his letter to Roberta. If it is not, then I pray for you, the reader of this book. If I'm still alive when the events foretold in these pages occur, then I hope you will find me before it's too late. And then she thanks some nuns, because she used to be a nun.
Amazing. So the way that I've structured this, I have not gone by the chapter order
of
the book. I've gone by the chronological sequences that they are shown in the movie. So chapter 1, we have the tangent universe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm quoting things from the movie, and I'm sure you can sort of jump in. Incidents when the fabric of the fourth dimension becomes corrupted are incredibly rare. If a tangent universe occurs, it will be highly unstable, sustaining life or itself for no longer than several weeks.
28 days.
Exactly. 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds. Eventually, it will collapse upon itself, forming a black hole within the primary universe capable of destroying all existence.
Yes, so that is what the film is about.
Exactly.
In the simplest way, sorry to interrupt, but...
No, the aim of this story is for Donnie to save the world.
It's for Donnie to close the time loop, yes.
Exactly.
Because when the jet engine falls... No, it's not when the jet engine falls, but that is a symbol of it. Is that our universe is then split into an alternate universe, which is called the tangent universe, and like you said, it will collapse in on itself unless rectified, and the way to rectify it is by getting rid of the jet engine. Is that right?
I think we'll cover it.
Okay, go on.
So chapter 2 is water and metal.
It's so stupid. I
Water
love
and
it.
metal are key elements of time travel.
Obviously.
Water is the barrier element for the construction of time portals used as gateways between universes and the tangent vortex.
Duh.
So obviously the water part of it, the chest burster, I like to call it.
Yeah.
I can't
No,
remember.
they call it the
It's
what's
my
he
guard
call
hole.
it? He calls it chest spear.
That comes up in a bit. Artifacts that can cross both worlds are made out of metal.
Yes.
So the artifact in this case, which will come up many, many times, is the jet engine. Yeah.
Yes, which is made of metal and came from nowhere because it is a... Oh, I know what it is. It's a duplicate, innit? And that's what's unstable about it. Unstable about the universe is that when the universe split, it formed a duplicate glitch, which was the jet engine that came from nowhere. And that's why it's unstable. And that's why Donnie needs to send it back through the vortex, because it's making our world unstable. Yes, I remember now.
To be fair, I feel like I have heard that.
Yeah, that is because...
That's
why Donnie at the end
recesses.
sends it back through the vortex, because he needs to get it out of the tangent universe, because it doesn't belong there, and it's a glitch, and it's going to collapse in on itself and form a black hole.
That makes sense.
They don't know where it came from.
So chapter 7, the manipulated living.
Love it.
Basically everyone else in the universe except for Donnie, Frank or Gretchen will do anything to save themselves from oblivion. The manipulated living are often close friends and neighbours of the living receiver, who in this case
It's Donnie Darko.
is Donnie Darko. This is included in the book but not in the movie. They are prone to irrational, bizarre and often violent behaviour. This is the unfortunate result of their task, which is to assist the living receiver, Donnie, in returning the artifact, the jet engine, to the primary universe.
Which is the universe you want to be in, but most of the movie is set in this tangent universe.
Yeah, so the world of Donnie Darko up until right at the end of the movie is the tangent.
I think the opening is the regular universe, isn't it? It's up until the night of October 2nd.
Oh, okay, right, I got you. Yeah. So chapter 4, the artifact and the living. When a tangent universe occurs, those living nearest to the vortex will find themselves at the epicenter of a dangerous new world.
Yes, so Donnie and the Darko family.
Donnie
and the Darkos.
Artifacts, the jet engine, provide the first sign that a tangent universe has occurred. If an artifact occurs, the living will retrieve it with great interest and curiosity.
So the
FAA investigation.
FAA. And also, did you know the guy in the tracksuit? You know, when Donnie and Gretchen, they want to kiss for the first time and they're like, oh,
yeah,
that guy.
the fat guy. Yeah.
And that fat guy shows up again at the end.
Yeah.
He's part of the FAA.
Ah.
Canonically.
And right now there's some fat guy over there staring at us.
Artifacts are formed of metal, such as an arrowhead from an ancient Mayan civilization or a metal sword from medieval Europe.
Yeah.
This is the weed talking, I would imagine.
Yeah, because there's stories of...
like ancient occurrences of this or something.
Like an arrow falling down from a cliff and hitting someone in the head, but there's no army up there.
Yeah.
It's like urban legend shit.
Yeah. Not from the movie, but from the book. Divine intervention is deemed to be the only logical conclusion for the appearance of the artifact.
Which is why the teacher says, I guess that's why they call it an act of God.
And in order for the vessel to travel through time, it's got to find a porthole, or in this case, a wormhole, or...
Well, could these portals just appear anywhere, anytime?
I think that's highly unlikely. No, I think what you're talking about is an act of God.
None of this really goes into the God stuff.
Not
because,
this book.
As in, none of the research that I have goes into the God stuff.
No, there's not a lot of God stuff, but obviously there's biblical themes.
Yeah, it's more of an implicit recognition that God exists.
And that Donnie is Jesus and dies for our sins.
Yes, true.
Oh, no, Donnie's like... He has a Christ-like sacrifice.
I saw him more as a superhero. But then to me, the big JC is a bit of a superhero as well.
He is.
Donnie Darko. What the hell kind of name is that? It's like some sort of superhero or something.
What makes you think I'm not?
So, yeah, what was that one? The artifact and the living. Yeah, divine intervention. Thanks, Frank.
Chapter 6. the living receiver.
Yes, Donnie Darko is the living receiver.
Donnie Darko. The living receiver is chosen to guide the artifact into position of its journey back to the primary universe.
Yes, so Donnie's whole goal of the movie is to get the jet engine through the vortex, out of this universe.
Again, watching that, you probably don't really pick up on it.
It's not fucking said.
No, all of this is done implicitly, and this is why I think the interstitials yesterday, I was trying so hard to pause it and read it, but they just don't fucking mean anything unless you do the research. But I mean, they do mean something, which is why I think the research is so interesting. No one knows how or why a receiver will be chosen. The living receiver is often blessed with the power of the fourth dimension. This is what we were talking about.
Yes.
These include increased strength, he can hit an axe into a bronze statue, telekinesis, mind control, and the ability to conjure fire,
Yes.
Cunningham's house, and water, the school pipe.
And there's a lot of questionable shit where it's like, how did he get to the school? How did, like, things like that.
The living receiver, Donnie, is often tormented by terrifying dreams, visions, and auditory hallucinations during his time within the Tangent universe.
His doctor says he's having what they call daylight hallucinations.
Yeah, so paranoid schizophrenia is what she deals with.
Yeah, because he's seeing visions of Frank.
Yeah. So last week we covered obviously Ingrid Goes West, and I feel like we took a much more comedic approach to mental illness. And listening back to it, I was a little bit like, oh, I don't want it to come across as if we were like dismissing it. But it's just not that kind of movie.
No, it's
Whereas
not.
this movie, I think, deals in a much more grounded way with mental illness and depictions of...
Yeah.
It's just a different kind of movie.
One thing, just on a side note, I do love about this movie, Donnie really respects his therapist.
Yeah, and the therapy stuff is great.
Yeah, he doesn't bullshit her. She doesn't bullshit him.
And that's nice because the dad says to him the best thing you could do is just be honest.
So we can't tell anybody what nobody knows.
Yeah.
I guess you can tell your doctor, what's your doctor's name? Dr. Thurman, Dad. Well, you just tell Dr. Thurman anything you want.
To go on to the sort of extended universe, the manipulated dead, those who die in the tangential universe, which is obviously Frank and
Gretchen,
will manipulate the living receiver, Donnie, using the fourth dimensional construct.
Yes.
Those surrounding the living receiver, Donnie, known as the manipulated, so the manipulated living is what we called them earlier, will fear him and try to destroy him.
Yeah.
So we see that with Jim Cunningham, we see that with Kitty.
Kitty, yeah.
So those are adversaries of Donnie.
Yeah.
And they fear him.
Frank and Gretchen's only goal in that movie is
to set things into place.
To set things into motion.
Yeah. Everything in the movie is framed as a coincidence.
Nothing is a coincidence.
Nothing is a coincidence, but all of these tiny little details lead to Donnie's death and the restoration of the timeline.
Funny you say Donnie's death, because Donnie's death is almost coincident. Not coincidental, but tangential, is that a word? Donnie's death Donnie's death is not necessary to restore the timeline. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't.
It's just Donnie accepting his fate. Donnie could leave the room if he wanted to.
Right. Literally the next thing I have, Donnie smiles as he dies, as he knows he will no longer die alone and the universe is restored.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
When you're watching it, again, I was like, why is he smiling? But
Every living thing dies alone.
His whole thing during the movie is his crippling fear of dying alone.
Which just fear of death.
I think that's why I like the movie so much, because I too have a crippling fear of death. And it's one of those movies where, you know what? When it's my time, maybe I'll feel like that.
Probably.
I don't want to think about that though. Moving on.
She said that every living creature on Earth dies alone.
Do you want to cover Insurance Trap? Because that leads on nicely.
Yep.
Because just what you're saying about nothing is a coincidence. The manipulated dead will set an insurance trap.
In this case, we're talking about Frank and Gretchen.
Yes. The living receiver, Donnie, must ensure the fate of all mankind. So Donnie basically has to get to a point where he has nothing to lose.
Because Gretchen is the only thing that stands in the way of Donnie.
And when we said about nothing is a coincidence, just as an example, which is pretty much just all the film. So Donnie meets Frank in the golf course. He tells him to flood the school. He floods the school so that he can meet Gretchen at the bus stop.
And he says, like, I'm so glad school was cancelled because this means we got to have this conversation.
I'm really glad school was flooded today.
Why is that?
Because you and I never had this conversation.
And he meets Gretchen and falls in love with Gretchen. So on Halloween night, they can go out to Roberta Sparrow's, and they have to go to Roberta Sparrow's so that Gretchen can die,
Yeah.
and then he can shoot Frank, which means that Frank can then retroactively die in the tangent universe and become the manipulated dead to guide Donnie. It's all leading to Donnie killing Frank so that he can guide Donnie. As a ghost, basically.
This is why when I was doing this today, I was like...
It's one of the tightest screenplays ever written.
It's crazy.
It's mad.
There's a lot of arty-farty words and there's a lot of ridiculousness in what we're saying, but it all fucking makes sense.
It all makes sense.
And I'm not sure if listening to this is going to be hard to follow. I may make a little accompanying diagram to sort of explain what we're talking about, because I think that will help.
Good morning. Good morning. How much are they paying you to be here?
So we get on to the last chapter, chapter 12, which is entitled Dreams. When the manipulated, so that's everyone other than Donnie, awakens from their journey in the tangent universe, they are often haunted by the experience in their dreams. Many of them will not remember. Those who do remember the journey are often overcome with profound remorse for their regretful actions buried within their dreams.
Yeah, it's just a sort of, I guess,
resetting of the timeline.
And I guess it's a sort of feeling of deja vu. Because Frank touches his eye.
Yeah, and there's an
where he
odd
got shot.
sense of dementia from the characters at the end of the movie. Obviously, after Donnie dies, Gretchen bikes past, and you mentioned it in your plot summary, but they sort of wave as if they know each other. And
they sort of recognise each other.
There's that odd sense of everyone sort of feels like they might know more than they do.
Also, love the kid at the end.
Hey, what's going on?
Horrible accident. My neighbor got killed.
What happened?
Got smushed by a jet engine.
It's just so good.
That scene where you see each of... That's what sets me off.
Did
Like,
you know-
I was already crying, but that bit when you cut to each of them, the dad looks distraught. Samantha is just like... You can tell she's upset, but she doesn't know what's going on. Elizabeth is just like a wreck, and the mum is just like smoking, and she waves to Gretchen, and it's just...
It is amazing. The Frank shot of him touching his eye, and we see that Frank designed himself the Halloween costume mask of the rabbit, was added after the premiere in Sundance, added last minute at the request of the studio. Because apparently people didn't get the Frank arc without that shot at the end, being like, oh no, he was a good guy.
What?
Yeah, I know.
How does that...
Look, he was in the bunny suit. That's him, everyone.
We knew that.
Yeah, I know. Following on from Frank, I love that character.
Yeah, I
He
think...
plays it so well.
He is great. And we haven't talked about it yet, but Frank is probably why are you wearing that stupid bunny suit. It might be the most frightening thing in...
Why are you wearing that stupid man suit?
Why are you wearing that stupid bunny suit?
Why are you wearing that stupid man suit?
It is so frightening.
Yeah, apparently everyone on set was shocked when it came out because they were not expecting it. They were like, oh, so this is the movie we're making. Apparently the only one who wasn't was Jake Gyllenhaal, who, the guy who plays Frank, you know, the first scene when they're on the golf course?
Yeah.
He was like, oh, I was shitting bricks behind the bunny costume because Jake Gyllenhaal was scaring me.
Oh, we are massive fans of Jake Gyllenhaal. I think I like him more than you do.
I think he's amazing.
But I'm the kind of person where I don't think he's given a bad performance in anything.
All the filmmakers say he was electric on set. He technically is a very gifted actor for screen. Apparently he adjusts himself. He is almost a visionary of being able to know how he's looking on screen.
That's crazy.
Apparently he's a natural screen actor.
I've always got the impression that he cares a lot about the roles, not so much these days, but he's just, we're in the man. He just wants that bag, which, you know what? He's contributed enough to cinema where I'm like, fuck it, if you want to just get ripped and make money.
Yeah, such a shame.
You go.
Do you know who was supposed to play Donnie?
Marky Mark.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Marky Mark was considered.
Oh, I know who signed on to play Donnie and dropped out.
There was quite a lot of people who were considered.
Jason Schwartzman?
Yeah.
Was the reason that movie got made, pretty much.
Vince Vaughn was meant to be him, but he felt he was too old.
And also the kid from Almost Famous was supposed to be him.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine.
No, and
anyone
apparently
else.
he read like 2 lines and they were like, "Yep, it's Jake Gyllenhaal," because they were panicking because Jason Schwartzman dropped out.
Yeah.
And they were panicking that the movie wasn't going to get made because Jason Schwartzman was basically the catalyst for that movie to get made. Because I think, everyone was like, this is such a good screenplay, shame it's never going to get fucking made because who the fuck is going to make this movie? And apparently it was even less likely to get made because Richard Kelly was adamant he was going to direct. He wouldn't let anyone else touch it, which is wild as well, because he was a first-time director and never directed a feature in his life.
I can't believe how competent and confident this movie is.
He had a lot of help from his DP. I don't have the name of him, but he worked on... He was like photography unit on like a lot of Ridley Scott stuff, so he shot a bit of Blade Runner.
Oh, okay.
And he signed on because of the script, because he thought it was so good. He seems lovely. In the documentary I watched, he said to Richard Kelly, like, because he's a bit older and obviously more experienced, and Richard Kelly was like, "This is my movie, can you not?" And the guy apparently came in first day and was like, "Listen, ignore the age difference, we're the same age, as far as I'm concerned, we're the same age." He was like, "I will advise you, but it's your movie, you get the final call, I will give you advice if you need it, but it's your movie."
Doing the research, I saw a couple of bits where he was so intimidated to direct actors because he'd never done it before.
Crazy.
And apparently he treated them as if they were his friends. And I think a lot of love went into this movie. The actors, the director, the DP,
Everyone. The costumes.
the costume design. And I guess we haven't really talked about it, but this movie is set in the 80s.
Yeah. It has an 80s film soundtrack.
Yeah.
One of the best soundtracks ever, by the way.
Honestly, watching this,
Amazing.
it is. And
the
I
director's
think,
cut and the theatrical cut.
I think the
both have amazing.
director's cut, it lingers a bit more on the audio. And obviously I know that a couple of the track switch ups that they have, I'm sure you know them more than I do, but The Killing Moon, I know is obviously
the Killing
one of
Moon
them.
got replaced by INXS.
But a lot of them, financially, they couldn't afford to acquire the sort of license in the theatrical version. So when it came to the director's cut, just as a tangent, it's funny that people sort of dubbed this as like the first flop to get a director's cut.
Funny.
A couple of the scenes were changed. The Killing Moon and the INXS one I know, but there is another
That's
one.
the only one I couldn't think of the top of my head.
Notorious was meant to be...
It was meant to be Pet Shop Boys,
Pet
West
Shop
End
Boys,
Girls.
which Notorious, I'm sorry, works so much better.
Yeah, I don't think Richard Kelly thinks so.
Apparently, I
Got
saw
a
that
stacked soundtrack.
Patrick Swayze used all of his old 80s clothes.
Yes, for the
They were shot at
infomercial.
his pad, weren't they? And again, it's set in the 80s, but it doesn't do that horrible Stranger Things nostalgia bait. They go and play a video game at
Yeah, again, another director's cut exclusive.
Yeah, but apparently they couldn't afford to actually give the cast 80s clothes, so they just decided that they're all just going to wear school uniform because it was easier.
Yeah, which makes it sense because it's like a private school as well. Which
but it
plays
also
into
it works. You don't even question it.
Yeah, amazing.
Smurfette doesn't fuck.
I've got some little just notes that I was watching it today that I wrote down.
Go
that
for
I'd like
it.
to bring up. Just some little odd bits which don't fit into the thing.
Tidbits. Yeah, go.
Evil Dead stuff's really cool.
Yeah, apparently what movie?
It was meant to be Chud.
Yes.
It was meant to be Chud. One of the producers knew Sam Raimi.
Yeah, he let music for free, right?
Yeah,
But
because he owned the original masters.
It was like an altered version.
It was just the original negatives, I think, that Sam owned.
But yeah, so cool.
Yeah, apparently, it obviously filmed in California, not set in California. Filmed all in LA.
I've just realised The Last Temptation of Christ shows at
Yes.
the movie theatre.
Yeah, alongside a double bill of Evil Dead and Last Temptation of Christ.
How cool is that?
And Last Temptation of Christ, notoriously one of the most picketed films of all time. But apparently, they were filming in Santa Monica on just a closed off street, that scene. And obviously they're not shutting down a whole street for a fucking $4 million movie or how much this cost. And Sam Raimi lived in Santa Monica and drove past and was like, what the fuck? Why are they showing my movie with The Last Temptation of Christ? And came and was like, hi, what are you doing?
That's
and they were
so
like,
funny.
oh no, this is the movie you signed off on. They were like, oh okay. Because he let them use the posters and everything.
Oh,
and
that's so cool.
they filmed in that cinema. Obviously the most iconic scene in the movie.
So good. There's a lot of just random little bits
There's
to
so
sort
much
of
to talk about with
address.
this movie. I'm sorry. I've got more theory to hit you away just quickly.
Yeah, go.
The Deus Ex Machina themes in the movie, which is one of the good things about the Watership Down scene, is that he's like, why do we give a fuck about rabbits? They're rabbits. Which is just not a very Donnie Darko thing to say, in my opinion. He's like, why should I care about rabbits? And it's like, oh, and she said it's Deus Ex Machina. It's just for the sake of storytelling.
But aren't we forgetting about the miracle of storytelling? The Deus Ex Machina, the God machine.
And when he's fighting Seth, the bully, at the end before Gretchen gets run over, he yells Deus Ex Machina, our saviour. And that's when the car swerves away from Roberta Sparrow, who's in the middle of the road inexplicably.
Mark, what did you just say? What the fuck did you just say? Our savior.
And so Deus Ex Machina, if you don't know, it means God from the machine or the God machine. And this is just its official definition. It's a plot device in which a personal thing appears out of the blue to help a character to overcome a seemingly insolvable difficulty. So some, I guess, more notable pop culture-y uses would be the Eagles in Lord of the Rings at the end, where they show up and take Sam and Frodo back to the Shire.
It solves an unsolvable issue.
And it derives from
divine intervention.
Yeah, and Greek mythology and the classics, like Ulysses and things like that, where God appears and picks him up and puts him there. It's a heavily criticised, modern and back in the day. There's a lot of Shakespearean comedies as well, or Shakespearean tragedies rather, used a lot of that, where it'd be like, this person shows up.
Why?
Because he died. And it's divine. I read on Wikipedia, one of the Avengers movies got heavily criticised for Deus Ex Machina, when at the end Captain Marvel shows up out of nowhere, and it's like, what? You've just written yourself out of it with divine intervention, which is obviously a bad screenwriting technique.
Yeah, 100%.
But in this, it's so self-referential and meta. I just think it's cool.
Yeah.
So another one of my weird points, which I read this morning and then rewatched the film and noticed. You know the male teacher, I can't remember his name, the professor. For some reason, the actor decided that this character should be diabetic. So in all his scenes, he's eating sweets, inexplicably.
How fucking random is that?
The scene where Donnie asks him about time travel, he's eating sweets.
I did see your notes and I saw teacher diabetic and I was like, the fuck?
Yeah, and another quotable scene, which is their class presentation. Donnie and Gretchen pitch the idea of the IMG in the classic.
Well, I mean, didn't your dad, like, stab your mom?
Yeah, so good. And he just goes,
get out.
He is eating sweets in that scene. You can see him like unwrapping sweets, and it's like, okay, I would do that because I get to eat sweets all day.
He's great as well.
He's fantastic.
And I think that character goes a hell of a long way into validating Donnie. Well, I mean, he puts him on the path to Roberta Sparrow. So, you know, he is the vehicle for Donnie's discovery.
The basic principles of time travel are there. You've got your vessel and your portal, and your vessel can be just about anything, most likely a spacecraft.
Like a DeLorean.
Metalcraft of any kind.
You know, I love that movie, the way they shot it. It's so, like, futuristic, you know?
Also, just sorry to get all anecdotal again. But obviously as a kid, I thought I was Donnie Darko. I thought
literally me.
There's that line where he's like, your Iowa test scores are intimidating. And I was like, oh, God. And the dad is just like, yeah, no, they're all... Because it's small town suburb mentality. Donnie's like the smartest guy, but in a teenage way. Like, both the teachers who he respects know it, right? They talk to him as a peer.
Yeah, and also... he's held back a year. He's probably the smartest person in his own year. But it's so funny, because I said to you when I was watching it, I was like, why does everyone in the class look so young?
Do you know how old he was when he filmed it?
Jake Gyllenhaal. 20?
Yeah, exactly 20.
20.
And that's why Jenna Malone is also a bit older than the rest of the cast. Because they didn't want it to be creepy and weird, which is not. And I will die on that hill, it's not creepy.
It is not creepy at all.
They're supposed to be 17 or 16.
I don't think people do have a problem with that, but
yeah,
it is nonsense.
Where was I going with that? Yeah, just that the teachers, I love them.
Yeah, they're
I
so
love
good.
English. English was the only class in school I cared about.
It is such a like...
I was like, yeah, I'm Donnie Darko. I read books.
Yeah.
I know everything.
Well,
the teachers respect me. They view me as a peer.
I said
Lisa
to you,
Simpson shit.
Watching it is boyfriend and girlfriend simulator for indie people. And when he does the speech at the Jim Cunningham thing, you're just like...
oh, so good. How much are they paying you to be here?
Watching that as like a 15-year-old girl, I was like, that boy is my boyfriend.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, no, I would do that. That'd be me.
Literally, he
That'd be
is
me. I would do that.
literally me.
Yeah.
I am literally Gretchen Ross.
I'm literally Donnie Darko,
She gets
so that's
me.
good. Yeah, I'd be best friends with Donnie.
Also, I love Donnie's friends.
I love
They
them
are
so much.
so funny. They just
First
like
off,
the Smurfette scene. This is literally what I'm like in real life, where I'm like, no one cares.
Because apparently that was one of the scenes that made it a hit in the UK. Apparently, it became a big pop culture thing in the UK. Smurf orgy.
Yeah,
Where
I'm not
people
surprised.
like did street art of Smurf orgies
It's so
and stuff.
funny.
First of all, Papa Smurf didn't create Smurfette. Gargamel did. She was sent in as Gargamel's evil spy with the intention of destroying the Smurf village, but the overwhelming goodness of the Smurf way of life transformed her. And as for the whole gangbang scenario, it just couldn't happen. Smurfs are asexual. They don't even have reproductive organs under those little white pants.
Damn, Donnie, why'd you have to always get so smart on us?
And I love that they're so dumb.
Oh, yeah.
And he is so intelligent. Every fucking character in this is great. Seth Rogen in his first acting performance.
I'd just like to shout out one line of dialogue, which could be the funniest line of dialogue ever written.
Some good shit, huh? It's a fucking cigarette.
It's so good.
It's so good. What's the next thing I was going to say? The score. Fucking amazing.
So good.
The sparse choral.
The score is...
Michael Andrews did it, and it's amazing.
Apparently, he was like, I couldn't afford, like, Danny Elfman.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of Trent Reznor scores that he does now. The Atticus Ross, it's just so sparse.
It's so good.
Oh, I was going to say, I never understood this until I watched the director's cut. I know they are the manipulated living or whatever, but Seth and Ricky, the two bullies, at the end are Roberta Sparrows in the cellar door, quote unquote. There we go. More manipulated living.
Oh, what? Why are they there?
Why are they there?
Yeah.
And then in the director's cut, Donnie's mum says in a scene that, kids like to go and rob Roberta Sparrow because she's really rich, and she's like, she's wealthy, sort of thing.
I remember I definitely had the theatrical version because as a teenager I remember being like,
it's so weird
why
that
the
they're there,
fuck
and it's brushed over. So yeah.
And again, he's a bully, but in like an 80s bully way, where like he has like a knife, like.
Oh yeah,
who the fuck?
That scene is great. Also, where he's in the bathroom.
There's not a scene in this that isn't good.
Yeah. So I'd like to, my last point, I just have 2 words, and it says young love.
Oh.
And it might be my favourite relationship ever put to film, Gretchen and Donnie.
It is beautiful. Because you said at the start of the movie that Donnie gives school shooter vibes. And I was like, no, not my Donnie.
Oh. Also, I didn't realise, I always thought Gretchen was like equally sort of, I'm an intellectual, same as Donnie is. But she's really not. Because that scene where she has to write about the greatest human invention, and he goes on that rant about penicillin.
Antiseptic.
Yeah. And she goes,
You mean soap?
I think that Donnie has extreme autism.
Oh, yeah.
He is incredibly smart to a creepy level. Their relationship is just... That is part of what makes me cry at the end. Because Gretchen never having known Donnie and never having that first love, I think she feels it.
Oh, no, she does. But he saves her.
He does, but it's so bittersweet.
Yeah, and that scene where she shows up to the Halloween party. And
I literally
have
want to
sex
cry
for the
even think
first
about
time, and Donnie is just and leads her upstairs and stuff, and it's just
when they descend the stairs and they're holding hands.
And Love Will Tear Us Apart.
Joy Division plays, and I'm
don't.
like watching this. I'm like, it's no wonder that I loved this movie.
She is the sort of girl as well where you just want to like protect her.
Yeah.
Same with Donnie. He's like when he's holding the teddy bear in the therapy scene.
He is my
which
manic
one of the
pixie dream boy.
scariest scenes in the movie.
Who is he going to kill, Donnie?
I can see right now!
One last thing that I saw, I was perusing the IMDb trivia for this.
Okay.
There are lots and lots and lots of rabbits. In the beginning scene where Elizabeth is outside, apparently she has a little rabbit. Donnie dresses up as a rabbit. There's a picture of him and Elizabeth at Halloween when they're kids. He's dressed up as a rabbit. And apparently there's just loads of rabbit, obviously the Watership Down stuff, but there's loads of like little rabbits dotted around the movie. Again, this is a movie that you can watch 100 times and you're still going to find new stuff about it. And I hope we've done the convoluted, ridiculous time travel stuff justice.
Yeah, and I hope this isn't just rambly. Fingers crossed. I love this movie so much, and I hope you do too at home.
It is so good.
And I know, if you're going to come back at me with, it's like Babby's first art house movie, deal with it.
Yeah, and also...
Go suck a fart.
Not all art house movies are good. A movie is not inherently good because it's an art house movie. This is the perfect level of artsy.
Even things like Primer, especially time travel as well, and plot complications.
Usually I'm not into that.
Yeah, this is why I'm so surprised you're into this, because I was going to say, we should watch Primer, and then I remember you hated Primer, right?
Yeah, well, and also, this movie is not about time travel.
No.
It's about relationships.
Yes. Oh yeah.
It's about it's about family.
That's what's so powerful about it.
It's about love in all forms, and the time travel thing. If you just watch the movie and just enjoy the movie, That's all you have to do. You don't have to go into researching everything about the philosophy of time travel. Because if you get that after watching this movie once, I would think
And even if you don't give a shit, it's fine. Again, I don't want to come across like you can like this movie without knowing this. I did for years. I didn't. For the first 2 years of watching this movie, very regularly, I didn't care about any of this. I didn't even research it the first time I watched it, or probably the first 10 times I watched it.
Yeah.
I just loved it for what it was. I loved
it's so funny.
the atmosphere. Yeah, the script is so funny. The performances are amazing. The soundtrack's amazing.
It looks great.
It looks amazing.
It's got hot people in it.
It's a bisexual person's dream.
Exactly.
So go rewatch Donnie Darko even if you watched it yesterday.
It's so good. We can't recommend it enough.
Let me know your favourite Donnie Darko quote. Mine is definitely, this is good shit. It's a fucking cigarette.
Yeah, there's so many to choose from.
Love it all. I would die for this movie.
Oh, you know what?
Play this movie as I'm dying.
You know what I like is the we should get divorced.
Oh yeah, director's cut.
And
they
look
laugh.
at each other, and you know that they would never do that.
Great.
When can I squeeze one out?
Not until 8th grade.
Thank you for listening to Idle Film Club this week. Beautiful film. I
So
can't recommend
good.
it enough. 10 out of 10. Probably my favourite film of all time.
Next week we are going to an
We're going
advanced.
on a little tennis match.
We're going to an advanced, super selective screening.
Yeah, Zendaya invited me to the screening because she loves the pod, and she saw a picture of me and thought I was really hot. She said, "Oh, your girlfriend can come too," and I went, "That's my fiance."
So yeah, next week, Challengers.
Challengers, it's out in cinemas.
We have not seen it yet.
Now, go watch it. As of
No,
time
it
of
is
recording.
not.
Yes, it is.
Oh, as of the time this is released, yeah.
Yes. Not for release.
Not for release. Oh, sorry.
So go see that. You have a week to see it, and then come back, listen to us talk about it.
Threesomes, and Josh O'Connor is gay yet again.
And Zendaya
winning
has white lady hair.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
As
See
always,
you next week.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
I don't like these movies.
Get real.
But I saw that movie 20 goddamn times.
Just consume violence. I watch violent movies. Yeah, violent movies are the best movies.
Having so much fun.
Oh, this movie's too complicated, ain't it?
So once again, no smoking in this theater.